Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are jumping into a question that is, well, incredibly relevant to pretty much everyone. What exactly sets apart those people who seem to maintain extraordinary health and vitality well past 65, compared to those who experience a much more rapid decline?
It's a really fundamental question about aging, isn't it? Because, while getting older is something we all do, the way we age, the speed and the quality, it differs massively from person to person. What's driving that difference?
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we looked at some material you shared with us, specifically a fascinating video that explores this very idea. It zeroes in on a set of 7 particular abilities. The video suggests that if you maintain these specific abilities between the ages of 65 and 80, it puts you in what they call an elite category of aging.
And the claims are significant. They argue maintaining these 7 abilities isn't just about feeling good. They're powerful indicators that predict continued independence and could potentially add, well, an extra decade or more to your life.
What's really interesting, and maybe a bit surprising, is that these aren't some kind of, Olympic-level skills. On the surface, they seem deceptively simple,
They do.
but the video makes a strong case that they reveal something quite profound about your underlying health and vitality.
They really do act like a kind of snapshot of how well your systems are functioning. The video starts with this memorable anecdote about Howard, a retired engineer who is 78. He had a checkup, and his doctor was genuinely taken aback because Howard's physical and cognitive test results, they were on par with someone in their early 60s.
Wow. And Howard himself wasn't doing anything he considered special, right? He wasn't like running marathons or solving complex puzzles every day.
No, and that's the key insight the video really emphasizes. It wasn't extraordinary feats. It was that his seemingly ordinary, consistent habits had preserved abilities that most people his age had already lost.
Right.
And the material argues these weren't minor distinctions, they were powerful predictors, that Howard was on track for exceptional longevity and, just as importantly, quality of life.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack exactly what those 7 abilities are, understand why they're so predictive based on the research mentioned, and look at the practical steps suggested in the video for maintaining them.
Let's jump in then. The first ability might sound almost too simple to be significant, but the research connected to it is actually quite compelling.
It's this one. Can you stand up from a chair without using your hands? Just rising from a seated position without pushing off your knees or the armrests or anything else for assistance?
Yeah, the video highlights this seemingly basic movement as a powerful predictor of how long you'll live.
And here's the eye-opening statistic mentioned. By the age of 70, nearly 60% of adults can no longer do this easily without needing some kind of assistance.
60%. That's huge. And researchers, like those cited from the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy, they actually use this specific test as a primary screening tool for longevity.
Okay, but why? Why is something that simple so important? The video quotes Dr. Sarah Matthews, she's a lead researcher, who explains it's because this ability indicates exceptional lower body strength, balance, and neuromuscular coordination.
Right, neuromuscular coordination, that's essentially how well your brain and muscles are communicating and working together efficiently.
Got it.
So being able to do this chair stand without help means these really fundamental physical systems are still highly functional. Dr. Matthews connects these 3 factors directly to predicting both lifespan and independence.
The anecdote shared in the video about Deborah, a 72-year-old retired teacher, really brings this home. She was at her book club and just realized she was the only person who could get up from this deep, soft sofa without pushing off with her hands.
Just seemed normal to her.
Yeah, but it meant she had retained crucial muscle mass and balance that her friends had already lost.
And sadly, the consequence for some of her friends was quite severe. Within months, 2 of them suffered falls serious enough to require hospitalization. Meanwhile, Deborah remained active and independent, which really illustrates that direct link between maintaining this ability and avoiding those potentially life-altering injuries.
So how do you check this for yourself? Find a sturdy chair, sit down, cross your arms over your chest, and just try to stand up without leaning way forward or using your hands.
And if you find it challenging, the good news from the video is that this is absolutely an ability you can strengthen, at any age. The suggested practice is simple. Perform 5 chair stands daily.
Okay.
If you need to start with just 1 or 2, that's perfectly fine. Build up gradually. The video claims consistent daily practice can show significant improvement within 3 weeks.
3 weeks, that's fast.
It is. The key takeaway here seems to be that the time to build this foundational strength is now, before a fall kind of forces the issue.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to the second ability then. This one links physical movement with cognitive function.
Ability number 2. Can you have a conversation while walking? Specifically, can you maintain a coherent discussion while walking at a normal pace without needing to pause your conversation, slow down your walk, or get noticeably breathless?
The video describes this as an extraordinary ability that most peers lose as they age, and it flags needing to stop walking just to be able to talk as a potential warning sign.
Yeah, this ability taps into what researchers, like those at the Mayo Clinic mentioned in the video, called dual task capacity.
Dual task capacity.
Yeah, your brain's ability to handle two things at once, physical locomotion and cognitive processing, like talking, is identified as a powerful predictor of brain health and longevity.
So the why behind this? The video quotes Dr. James Wilson, a director of geriatric neurology. He explains it demands exceptional oxygen utilization, cerebral blood flow, and neurological integration.
Think about that your body needs to efficiently deliver oxygen to both your working muscles and your brain, right? And your brain needs to seamlessly coordinate the walking part while also accessing language, memory, attention, all for the conversation.
That's a lot going on.
It is. And when these systems aren't functioning optimally, maintaining that conversation while walking becomes really taxing or maybe even impossible.
The anecdote here is about Gerald, a 76-year-old retired accountant. He noticed his friends would always slow down or even stop walking when they were talking.
Right.
But he could easily keep pace and discuss complex topics at the same time.
And his doctor later pointed out that this wasn't just, good multitasking. It indicated superior brain health and circulation compared to his peers.
And kind of mirroring the previous story, 2 of Gerald's walking companions later suffered strokes while he remained vibrant. It suggests this dual task ability was a marker of some deeper resilience.
So to practice this, the video suggests incorporating a bit of brain training into your walks. Simply try maintaining your normal pace while reciting something, maybe a poem, lyrics to a song, or even just counting backward from 100.
Okay.
Start with just 30 seconds or a minute, perhaps, and gradually increase the duration as you get more comfortable. It's actively training your brain to handle those multiple demands simultaneously.
All right, number 3 is all about stability and the surprising risk attached to losing it.
Ability number 3. Can you balance on one foot for 10 seconds or more without holding on to anything?
This one feels deceptively simple, but the statistics shared in the video, which they drew from a study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, it's genuinely shocking.
It really is. This study tracked over 1,700 adults, and the discovery was stark. Participants who could not balance on one leg for 10 seconds had an 84% higher risk of death within the next decade compared to those who could.
84%. Let that sink in. The video emphasizes that in that specific study, this single 10-second balance test was a more accurate predictor of mortality risk over the next decade than traditional factors like age, sex, or even existing health conditions.
Wow. That just highlights how foundational balance really is.
It really does.
Yeah.
It dramatically underscores the importance of avoiding falls, which, as we know, often trigger a whole cascade of health problems in older adults.
Yeah. The anecdote about Alice, age 74, who diligently practiced balance, versus her sister Irene, who kind of found it amusing and unnecessary. It's a powerful illustration.
Right. Just 3 months after dismissing Alice's practice, Irene suffered a severe fall, fractured her hip, significant complications. It altered her life dramatically.
Meanwhile, Alice, because she had maintained her balance, stayed active and fall-free. The video strongly emphasizes that you can improve this ability regardless of your current age. It's not fixed.
So how do you practice?
This suggested practice is very accessible. Stand near a counter or a sturdy chair so you can grab on if you need to.
Okay, for safety.
Exactly. Practice balancing on one foot for just 5 seconds, maybe 3 times on each foot daily. Gradually work your way up to 10 seconds, then 15.
And the video suggests integrating this into your routine, right? Like while brushing teeth or waiting for coffee.
Precisely. Maybe while brushing your teeth, waiting for the kettle to boil, standing in line, make it part of your day. The clear message here is that waiting until you've had a fall to start practicing balance is just too late.
Definitely sounds like something worth starting now. Okay, shifting gears a bit now to a key cognitive ability for number 4.
Ability number 4. Do you remember names and recent events clearly? Specifically, can you readily recall the names of people you've met recently and details from your recent conversations without, significant effort or struggle?
The video identifies this as a cognitive function that declines notably in many people over 65, and it frames it as a strong predictor of exceptional brain aging.
Research mentioned from neuroscientists at Harvard Medical School suggests that maintaining this ability after age 65 is a sign of remarkably preserved neural networks in the brain.
Dr. Emily Carson, quoted in the material, clarifies that significant memory decline is not normal aging. It's not an inevitable part of getting older for everyone.
Right. She notes that adults who maintain strong recall, like this show superior brain connectivity patterns, basically, their brain cells are still talking to each other really efficiently, and this correlates strongly with longevity and resistance to dementia.
The anecdote about Walter, age 75, really highlights this. He consistently surprised his family by effortlessly recalling names of people he'd met weeks ago, specific details from conversations months prior.
Well, his family just thought, wow, he has an impressive memory.
Exactly. His doctor recognized it as a significant sign his brain was aging at a much slower rate than average for his age.
And the statistics shared alongside this is quite striking. Adults maintaining this specific type of memory function after 65 have a 47% lower risk of developing dementia.
47% lower risk.
Yeah, and on average, they tend to live 7 to 10 years longer than those experiencing more typical age-related memory decline.
So how do you work on this? The video provides a practical way. Practice active recall.
Active recall, how does that work?
When you meet someone new, make a conscious effort to repeat their name back to them immediately. Maybe link their name to something distinct about them or the situation.
Okay, create an association.
Exactly. Then, later in the day, maybe before bed, spend just a moment actively reviewing the names and key details of people you encountered. This isn't about having a gifted memory. It's about actively creating and strengthening those neural pathways.
So you're exercising the memory muscle, essentially.
Precisely. The video stresses that memory decline is not inevitable for everyone, and those who maintain this function are actively preserving their brain health, not just getting lucky.
Right. Moving on to ability number 5, which focuses on a really fundamental aspect of health: sleep.
Ability number 5. Do you sleep soundly through the night and wake up feeling genuinely refreshed? Not just getting enough hours, but experiencing efficient, restorative sleep.
The video presents this as a physiological advantage that unfortunately becomes quite rare after 65, but one that holds significant potential for adding healthy years to your life.
Yeah, sleep researchers, like those at Stanford University's Center for Sleep Sciences mentioned in the material, confirm that while fragmented or poor sleep is common with age, maintaining quality sleep remains a really powerful predictor of longevity and overall health.
Dr. Richard Thompson is quoted explaining the biological benefits. He says adults over 65 with efficient sleep have lower levels of inflammatory markers throughout their body.
Okay, less inflammation.
Right, better cognitive function, and a remarkable 32% reduced risk of cardiovascular events compared to those who suffer from fragmented or poor sleep.
32% lower risk of heart issues just from sleeping well.
Yeah, it's significant. The story of Diana, age 77, illustrates the impact of prioritizing this. While many of her friends were relying on sleep medications and still waking up feeling tired, she focused on rigorous sleep hygiene, maintaining consistent times, creating a dark, cool room. Her doctor noted that her sleep efficiency was comparable to someone 20 years younger.
Wow.
And that was seen as a major contributor to her sustained health, while many of her peers were developing chronic conditions often linked to poor sleep.
So what are the practical tips here? The video suggests several practices.
Establishing a consistent sleep routine is key, going to bed and waking up around the same time every day, even on weekends.
Right. Consistency matters.
Crucially, eliminate screens, phones, tablets, TVs for at least an hour before bed. That blue light really does disrupt melatonin production.
Okay, no screens before bed.
Keep your bedroom cool, ideally between 65-68 degrees Fahrenheit and as dark as possible. And if you wake up during the night, resist the urge to check the time. That can just increase anxiety and make it harder to fall back asleep.
Good point.
The material also strongly recommends discussing with your doctor if you can transition off sleep medications, stating that natural sleep provides far more protective benefits than medicated sleep.
That's an important distinction.
Definitely. Sleep is when your body does essential cellular repair, clears toxins from your brain, like those associated with Alzheimer's, and regulates vital hormones. Those who sleep well aren't just lucky, they are actively engaging in a process that protects their long-term health and extends their lifespan.
Okay, number 6 shifts our focus back to social interaction, but in a very specific way.
Ability number 6. Can you hold a meaningful conversation without dominating it? This means engaging in a balanced back and forth, listening attentively, asking questions, and sharing thoughtfully without constantly interrupting, talking over others, or, repeating the same stories over and over.
The video describes this as a rare social ability that surprisingly reveals extraordinary brain function after 65. It's not just about being polite.
Exactly. As social neuroscientists like those at UCLA reference in the video refer to this balanced exchange as conversational reciprocity, and they link it directly to exceptional prefrontal cortex activity.
The prefrontal cortex, that's the brain CEO, right? Planning, social awareness.
Precisely. As explained by Dr. Amanda Sutton in the material, it's responsible for executive functions like social awareness, impulse control, inhibiting inappropriate behavior. And this area often shows decline with age.
So maintaining that conversational balance shows the CEO is still working well.
That's a good way to put it. Adults who can do this demonstrate remarkable preservation of executive function, and this correlates strongly with extended lifespan and cognitive health.
The anecdote here is about Victor, age 81. Friends and family genuinely enjoyed spending time with him because conversations were always engaging and balanced. He listened, asked thoughtful questions, shared appropriately.
And the video highlights this social skill wasn't just a personality trait. It actually reflected extraordinary brain preservation that predicted an exceptional lifespan for him.
And the good news, like the others, is that this ability can be strengthened with conscious effort. It's not fixed.
So how do you practice conversational reciprocity?
The suggested practice involves actively monitoring your own behavior in conversation. Maybe set a small goal, like aiming to ask at least 2 questions for every story or point you share.
Okay, balancing speaking and asking.
Yeah. And practice active listening after someone speaks. Briefly summarize what you heard them say before jumping in with your own thoughts, just to show you are listening and processing.
So what I hear you saying is...
Exactly. And if you realize you've been talking for, say, a minute or more without any input from the other person, consciously pause and explicitly invite them to share their thoughts or ask a question.
Makes sense. Break the monologue.
Right. And this practice is framed not just as improving social skills, but as a form of brain training that strengthens the neural networks critical for cognitive longevity. The video notes that by age 75, many adults show a noticeable decline in this conversational balance. So working on it is actively preserving those key brain functions.
Okay, that brings us to the final one. Ability number 7 focuses on how we handle change, specifically technological change.
Ability number 7. Can you adapt to new technology without major resistance? This means being willing and able to learn and use new tools like smartphones, apps, online platforms, or digital devices without becoming overly frustrated or just declaring yourself too old for this.
The video highlights this cognitive flexibility as something that becomes increasingly rare after 65, and remarkably, it's directly linked to your potential lifespan.
Directly linked. Wow, how so?
Well, research from places like MIT's Age Lab strongly supports this. Dr. Joseph Coughlin, the lab's director quoted in the material, states that a willingness and ability to adapt to technological change is one of the most powerful predictors of maintained independence and cognitive health in aging.
Okay, but why? What's the mechanism?
He explains that seniors who actively adapt to new tech demonstrate superior neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and form new connections.
Exactly. Your brain's amazing ability to form new connections and pathways throughout your life. Learning a new app literally builds new neural connections. And this superior neuroplasticity predicts extended independence and significantly lower rates of cognitive decline.
The anecdote about Emily, age 76, vividly illustrates this. She embraced learning how to use smartphones and various digital tools, while many of her friends resisted, saying, they were too old or it was too complicated.
Familiar story.
Then the pandemic hit. Emily easily transitioned to video calls for family and social connections, managed her banking and shopping online, even used digital tools for health management.
While her tech-resistant friends...
They became more isolated and dependent because they lacked the skills to connect and manage things digitally in that new reality. Emily's willingness to learn wasn't just convenient. The video argues it maintained crucial neural pathways that directly contributed to her longevity and quality of life.
So the key takeaway here isn't about being a computer genius, right?
Not at all. It's fundamentally about your attitude and a willingness to engage in new learning, combined with simple, consistent practice.
And the suggested practice reflects that.
Yeah, it's approachable. Identify just one new digital skill you want to learn or improve. Maybe it's using a specific app, learning online banking, mastering video chat, whatever feels relevant.
Okay, one small thing.
Dedicate just 10 minutes a day to practicing it. Use online tutorials, ask a friend or family member for help. The most crucial element the video stresses is the mindset. Approach it with curiosity. Frame it as, I haven't learned this yet, rather than frustrated resistance like, I'm too old to figure this out.
That mindset shift is huge.
It really is. The video notes that by age 70, over 60% of adults show significant resistance to tech adaptation, so even small steps here are meaningful. Every 10 minutes of practice strengthens those vital neural connections that support cognitive longevity.
So there you have them. These 7 abilities derived from the material you shared: being able to stand from a chair unaided, holding a conversation while walking, balancing on one foot.
Remembering names and recent events, sleeping soundly and waking refreshed.
Engaging in balanced conversations, and adapting to new technology. The video makes a compelling case that maintaining even just a few of these abilities is a strong indicator that you might be aging at a significantly slower rate than your peers.
And importantly, the practices shared for each ability aren't just theoretical, are they? They offer concrete, actionable ways to strengthen these functions, regardless of where you find yourself right now. It highlights that you don't have to passively accept decline.
That's really the powerful message here. These aren't just interesting observations or convenient skills to have. The video makes a strong research-backed case that they are deeply linked to how long and how well you'll live.
Right. The individuals who maintain these abilities into their later years aren't just lucky. They're preserving fundamental biological and cognitive functions that are crucial for protecting their independence, their vitality, and yes, potentially adding good years to their lives.
What's truly fascinating to consider, I think, is how these seemingly simple, almost mundane actions, like just standing up from a chair or managing a balanced conversation, could be such profound reflections of your underlying biological and cognitive resilience.
Yeah, it really pushes back against the idea that aging is just this monolithic, unstoppable decline, doesn't it?
It really does.
This deep dive into the material you provided really makes you think about the power of simple, consistent practices in preserving health and independence. It leaves us with an important question for you, the listener, to consider based on what we've explored today. What single small step might you take this week to start strengthening one of these abilities? Something actionable and simple you can integrate into your routine.
Something definitely worth mulling over.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into what it takes to age vibrantly.